The red ships moved through space like deadly sharks. Each one was the size of a small city, covered in thick armor that could stop any weapon the galaxy had ever seen. Inside these ships, the Vorthak warriors stood 12 feet tall with scales, harder than steel and claws that could cut through metal like paper. General Talon walked through the command center of his flagship. His yellow eyes glowed in the dim light as he looked at the star maps covering the walls. 3,000 years. That was how long his people had ruled the galaxy. 3,000 years of perfect victories. "Sir," called out his aide, a smaller Vorthak with fresh scars across his face. "We have new reports from the Outer Rim." Talon turned his massive head. "What kind of reports?" "A new species, General. The scouts found them on a blue planet. They call themselves humans." Talon laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "Another weak race to add to our empire. What makes them special?" The aide looked at his data pad. "They are small, sir. Only 6 feet tall on average, no natural armor, no claws, no special abilities. They seem to use tools and machines instead of their bodies." "Pathetic," Talon said. He had heard this story 1,000 times before. Every species they found was the same. They would fight for a little while, lose badly, then bow down and become slaves. "Send a small fleet, take a few thousand for workers and kill the rest." Far across the galaxy, Commander Daeun stood on the bridge of the human ship Determination. She was looking at the stars through the large window, thinking about how far humanity had come. Just 50 years ago, they had learned how to travel between stars. Now they were exploring the galaxy, looking for new worlds and new friends. "Commander," said her communications officer, a young man named Wu. "We are getting strange signals from the edge of our sensor range." Daeun walked over to his station. "What kind of signals?" "Unknown ship types, ma'am. Big ones. They are not answering our calls." Daeun felt her heart beat faster. This was what every explorer feared and hoped for at the same time. First contact. With aliens. "Put all ships on alert, but don't aim weapons yet, they might be friendly." 3 red Vorthak ships appeared on their screens. They were huge compared to the human vessels. The Determination was humanity's largest ship, but it looked like a small boat next to the alien giants. "This is Commander Daeun of the Earth-ship Determination," she said into the radio. "We come in peace. Please respond." The answer came in perfect human language, cold and commanding. "Small creatures, you will surrender now. Your ships will be taken. Your people will serve the Vorthak Empire. Resist and you will all die." Daeun looked around her bridge. Her crew stared back at her with wide eyes. She thought about her family back on Earth, about the colonies full of families just starting, new lives. Then she thought about the word surrender. Humans had a long history with that word. It was a word that had started wars and ended them. It was a word that separated the living from the dead. But it was not a word that came easily to her species. "This is Commander Daeun," she said calmly. "We do not surrender to anyone. If you want a fight, you will get one." On the Vorthak command ship, Captain Vex looked at his screens with surprise. "Did the small creature just refuse our order?" "It seems so, Captain," said his weapons officer. "Should we destroy them quickly?" Vex smiled, showing teeth like knives. "No, let them attack first. It will be amusing to see what their tiny weapons can do." The Determination moved forward with its 2 escort ships. Daeun knew they had no chance in a straight fight. The alien ships were too big and too strong. But humans had learned long ago that straight fights were not always the only option. "Target their weapon systems," she ordered. "All ships attack. Pattern Alpha. Fast and low." The human ships split up and came at the aliens from 3 different directions. They moved fast, using their smaller size to dodge the big alien weapons. The Vorthak ships tried to turn and follow, but they were too slow. Human missiles and energy beams hit the alien ships, but the thick armor protected them well. The aliens laughed as their own weapons fired back. But something strange happened. The human ships did not try to fight like heroes in old stories. They hit and ran away, they struck and disappeared, they fought like wolves, not like lions. "Why do they not stand and fight?" Vex asked, confused. "The battle lasted for 2 hours. The human ships kept moving, never staying in one place long enough for the aliens to target them properly. They aimed for the same spots over and over, slowly breaking through the thick armor. When the first Vorthak ship exploded, Vex could not believe his eyes. How? How did they break our armor? Daeun watched from her bridge as the alien ship died, in fire and light. Because we are not trying to win quickly, she said to her crew. We are trying to win completely. The second alien ship tried to run, but the human ships followed it. They chased it for an hour, hitting it again and again until it too exploded. The third ship managed to escape, but not before sending a message back to the Vorthak Empire. General Talon received the message 3 days later. Captain Vex's voice was full of fear and confusion. General, the humans destroyed 2 of our ships. They fight unlike anything we have ever seen. They do not fight with honor. They fight to kill. Talon stared at the message for a long time. In 3,000 years, no species had ever destroyed even one Vorthak ship in their first battle. Most species could not even scratch their armor. Sir, asked his aide, what are your orders? Talon looked at the star map again. The small blue planet seemed different now. Not just another world to conquer, but something else. Something that might actually be dangerous. Send more ships, he said slowly. Many more ships. And tell them to be careful. These humans might be different. The aide looked confused. Different how, sir? Talon did not answer right away. He was thinking about something Captain Vex had said. The humans did not fight with honor. They fought to kill. In all of Vorthak history, they had never met a species that fought only to win. Just send the ships, he said finally, and tell them to watch for traps. As the red ships prepared for war, neither side knew they were about to learn something new about the galaxy. The Vorthak would learn that size and strength were not everything, and the humans would learn just how far they were willing to go to protect their freedom. The hunt was about to begin. 6 months had passed since the first battle. Earth was no longer a peaceful world of explorers and dreamers. Every factory now made weapons. Every shipyard built warships. Every person knew that aliens were coming to destroy them. General Caden stood in his war room, looking at a map of human space. 200 red dots showed where his ships waited, ready to attack. It was the largest fleet the Vorthak had ever sent against a new species. Usually 50 ships were enough to make any world surrender. The humans have built more ships, reported his intelligence officer. Our spies count nearly 100 vessels. Caden laughed. 100 tiny ships against our 200 giants? This will be over in 1 day. He had won 47 battles in his long life. Every species fought the same way. They would line up their ships and try to trade shots with the mighty Vorthak fleet. Then they would die. Sir, said another officer, the humans have been studying our technology. The ships we lost in the first battle? What about them? Caden asked. The humans took pieces. They have been learning how our weapons work. Caden waved a clawed hand. It does not matter. You cannot make a sword sharp enough to cut diamond. Their small minds cannot understand Vorthak science. Far away, on the bridge of the human ship Indomitable, Admiral Hyun was having a very different conversation. She had spent the last 6 months learning everything humans could about their new enemy. The pieces of alien ships had taught them much. Their armor is strong but heavy, reported Dr. Minji, the fleet's science officer. It makes their ships slow to turn, and their weapons are powerful but take time to charge between shots. Weaknesses, Hyun said with a small smile. Everything has weaknesses. Lieutenant Yuna, the youngest pilot in the fleet, raised her hand. Admiral, my squadron has been practicing new attack patterns. We think we can get inside their weapon range. Hyun nodded. Show me. On the tactical display, small blue dots showed human ships moving in complex patterns around larger red shapes. The blue dots scattered like frightened fish, then came together like hunting wolves. We don't fight their strength, Yuna explained. We make them fight our speed. Captain Jinwoo, a former soldier, stepped forward. Ma'am, I've been working on something else. While the fleet fights, my teams can attack their supply ships. No army can fight without food and fuel. Hyun looked at both officers. The Vorthak expect us to line up and fight like civilized beings. They want a nice, clean battle where the strongest wins. And we're not going to give them that, Jinwoo said with a grin. No, Hyun agreed. We're going to give them a war. The battle began at Proxima Station, humanity's furthest outpost. General Caden brought his massive fleet in a perfect formation, just like he had done 47 times before. The human ships waited for them in what looked like a traditional battle line, you see, Caden told his officers. They fight like all the others, prepare the main guns, we will destroy them in one attack. But as the Vorthak ships moved forward, something unexpected happened. The human battle line suddenly broke apart. Ships scattered in all directions like startled birds. Some headed for the asteroid field nearby. Others dove toward the planet. A few even seemed to run away completely. What are they doing? Caden demanded. Unknown, sir. They seem to be hiding? Caden was confused. In all his battles, no enemy had ever just scattered. They always stood their ground and fought bravely until they died. Find them. Destroy them all. The great Vorthak ships turned slowly, trying to follow the human vessels. Their powerful weapons fired at rocks and shadows, but the humans were no longer where they expected them to be. Then the real attack began. Lieutenant Yuna led her squadron out of the asteroid field like angry wasps. Her small fighters were too fast for the big alien guns to track. They flew between the huge ships, firing at weapon systems and engines. Each attack lasted only seconds before the fighters disappeared again. Target the small ones, Caden ordered. But every time his ships aimed at the fighters, the human capital ships would appear from behind asteroids and attack his main fleet. The battle became a deadly game of hide and seek. The humans would not stand still and fight fairly. They hid and ran, struck and vanished, attacked and disappeared. It was like trying to fight smoke. Captain Jinwoo's special teams had already infiltrated Caden's supply convoy. They planted bombs on fuel ships and poison in water supplies. When Vorthak warriors went to eat, they found their food spoiled. When they tried to refuel their ships, the fuel exploded. Sir, reported Caden's supply officer, we are losing ships behind our lines. The humans are somehow attacking our rear areas. Impossible, Caden roared. No enemy has ever attacked our supply lines. But the humans had studied their enemy well. They knew that proud warriors often forgot about the boring work of keeping an army fed and fueled. While the Vorthak watched, for heroic battles, humans struck at the practical things that made battles possible. Admiral Hyun watched the battle from her command ship, hidden inside a hollow asteroid. Her screens showed the chaos outside. Vorthak ships spun in circles trying to find enemies who refused to stay and fight. Their formations fell apart as captains tried to chase individual human ships. They are getting angry, observed Dr. Minji. Good, Hyun replied. Angry people make mistakes. She was right. As the battle went on, Vorthak ships began acting alone instead of working together. They chased human fighters into traps. They fired at false targets. They crashed into each other trying to turn quickly. The humans, meanwhile, fought like a pack of wolves. Every attack was planned. Every movement had a purpose. They were not trying to prove they were brave. They were trying to win. The battle lasted 12 hours. When it ended, half of Caden's mighty fleet was destroyed or damaged. The humans had lost only 15 ships, most of them fighters whose pilots had ejected safely. General Caden stood in his damaged command center, staring at his screens in shock. How? How did they defeat us? His communications officer looked up with fear in his eyes. Sir, we are receiving a message from the human admiral. Put it on screen. Admiral Hyun appeared, looking calm and professional. General Caden, this is Admiral Hyun of the Earth Defense Fleet. We are prepared to accept your surrender. Caden's jaw dropped open. No one had ever asked a Vorthak general to surrender. Ever. You cannot be serious, he stammered. I am completely serious, Hyun replied. You came to our space to destroy us. We defended ourselves. Now you have two choices. Leave immediately, or we will destroy what remains of your fleet. But we are the Vorthak. We do not lose battles. Hyun smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "General, you did not lose a battle today. You lost a hunt, and humans are very good hunters." Caden's remaining ships limped away from Proxima Station, leaving behind wreckage and wounded pride. For the first time in Vorthak history, their mighty fleet had been defeated by a smaller enemy, but the humans were just getting started. As news of the victory spread through human space, Admiral Hyun was already planning the next phase. The Vorthak would come back. They would bring more ships and better plans. But they would still be thinking like predators who expected their prey to stand still and fight. They did not understand yet that humans were not prey. Humans were hunters. And the hunt had only just begun. Captain Jinwoo was already preparing his next mission. While the Vorthak licked their wounds and planned revenge, human teams would strike deeper into enemy territory. They would find Vorthak bases and supply depots. They would learn how the alien empire really worked, and then they would start breaking it, piece by piece, until nothing was left but the memory of creatures who had once thought they ruled the galaxy. The age of Vorthak supremacy was ending, though they did not know it yet. The age of human persistence was just beginning. 1 year had passed since the first human victory, and the galaxy was learning a new kind of fear. The Vorthak Empire still controlled hundreds of worlds, but their grip was slipping like sand through their clawed fingers. General Talon walked through the ruins of what used to be a supply depot on the planet Karis. Smoke still rose from the twisted metal and burned equipment. His soldiers stood guard, but their eyes kept moving, watching the shadows for enemies that might not be there. "How many attacks this month?" he asked his aide. 47, sir. On 17 different worlds. Always the same pattern. Strike. Fast, destroy supplies, disappear before we can respond." Talon kicked a piece of broken machinery. "And our forces on the occupied human colonies?" The aide's face grew pale. "It is difficult, sir. The humans will not accept our rule. Every day brings new problems. Sabotage, attacks on our soldiers, poisoned food, broken equipment. Even their children throw rocks at our patrols." On the human colony of New Sol, Commander Nari crept through the air vents of the Vorthak Command Center. She had been hiding in the city for 3 months, organizing resistance cells and gathering intelligence. Tonight, she planned to plant a virus in their computer systems. The aliens were strong and tough, but they were not smart about security. They never expected enemies to be small enough to crawl through air vents or clever enough to hack their systems from the inside. She reached the main computer room and quietly removed a vent cover. 2 Vorthak guards stood below, but they were looking outward for threats, not upward for tiny humans with explosives. Nari dropped a small device onto the main computer core. In 30 seconds, it would corrupt all the data and send false reports to the Vorthak High Command. The aliens would spend weeks trying to figure out which information was real and which was fake. As she crawled back through the vents, she heard the guards talking. "I hate this world," one said. "The humans never stop fighting. Back home, when we conquered a planet, the people accepted it and got back to work." "These creatures are different," the other replied. "They act like we are the invaders, not their new rulers." Nari smiled in the darkness. That was exactly right. To humans, the Vorthak were invaders, and invaders could be fought, confused, and eventually driven away. Dr. Minji worked in her secret laboratory on a captured Vorthak ship. She had spent months studying alien prisoners and their biology. What she found gave humanity its first real hope for victory. "Admiral," she said into her communicator, "I have discovered something important about Vorthak physiology. Their regeneration abilities require a specific mineral compound found only on their homeworld." Admiral Hyun's voice crackled back through the static. "Explain." "They need regular doses of this mineral to maintain their healing and long life. Without it, they age rapidly and their wounds don't heal properly. The further they get from their homeworld, the weaker they become." "How long can they go without it?" "Based on my tests, about 6 months before serious effects begin. A year before they start dying of old age." Hyun was quiet for a moment. "Doctor, you may have just won us this war. Send me all your data immediately." Captain Shung commanded. the human fleet's raiding operations from his ship, the Persistence. His job was to make the Vorthak Empire too expensive to maintain. Every supply convoy attacked, every depot destroyed, every communication relay bombed, made the aliens weaker. Target acquired, reported his weapons officer. Vorthak supply fleet, 12 ships, heading for the occupied worlds. Attack pattern, Delta, Shung ordered. Hit the fuel carriers first, then the food ships. Let the escorts watch their cargo burn. The human ships struck like lightning from 3 directions. The Vorthak escorts tried to protect their supply vessels, but the humans had learned to target the most important ships first. Without fuel and food, the mighty Vorthak army was just a collection of hungry, stranded warriors. The attack lasted 20 minutes. When it was over, 10 supply ships floated dead in space, and the 2 surviving escorts fled back to report another failure. "Sir," asked his communications officer, "should we pursue the escorts?" "No," Shung replied. "Let them go. I want them to tell their commanders what happened here. Fear is as good a weapon as any missile." On hundreds of worlds across the Empire, similar scenes played out every day. Human strike teams appeared from nowhere, destroyed something important, and vanished before the Vorthak could respond. It was like fighting ghosts, but ghosts that could blow up fuel depots and murder supply officers in their sleep. The psychological impact was worse than the physical damage. Vorthak soldiers, who had never known defeat, began to jump at shadows. They traveled in large groups and slept in shifts. Some refused to patrol alone, even on supposedly secure worlds. Commander Nari found herself captured during a raid that went wrong. She was brought before General Talon in chains, her face bloody but her eyes still defiant. "You will tell me how many resistance cells operate on this world," Talon demanded. Nari spat blood on the floor. "I will tell you nothing." "We have ways of making prisoners talk," Talon said, showing his claws. "Then use them," Nari replied calmly. "But while you waste time torturing me, 50 more humans are planting bombs in your supply depots." Talon stared at her for a long moment. In all his centuries of conquest, enemy prisoners had either begged for mercy or died bravely but quickly. This human seemed almost happy to be captured, as if it gave her another chance to waste his time and resources. "Why do your people fight like this?" he asked. "Why not accept the natural order? The strong rule the weak. This is how the galaxy has always worked." Nari smiled, despite her injuries. "General, let me tell you about persistence hunting. My ancestors on Earth would find a large, dangerous animal, something stronger and faster than any human. Then they would chase it. Chase it? For days, sometimes weeks. The animal would run and the humans would follow. The animal would rest and the humans would catch up. The animal would run again, and the humans would follow again. Eventually, the animal would collapse from exhaustion, and the humans would have their dinner." Talon frowned. "What does this have to do with our war?" "You conquered the galaxy because you were apex predators," Nari explained. "Big, strong, scary. Every species you met was prey to you. But we evolved to hunt apex predators. We don't run from big, scary things. We chase them until they fall down." The alien general felt something he had never experienced before, a cold feeling in his stomach that might have been fear. "You cannot hunt an entire empire." "Watch us," Nari said simply. Back in space, the human fleet had scattered into 1,000 small groups. Each one hunted Vorthak ships and installations with endless patience. They studied their targets for weeks, learning schedules and weaknesses. Then they struck with surgical precision. The Vorthak tried to adapt. They sent larger fleets, used better security, changed their routes randomly. But the humans adapted, faster. For every new defense, they found a new attack. For every trap, they developed a counter-trap. Admiral Hyun coordinated the campaign from her mobile command center, which never stayed in the same place for more than 6 hours. She knew that standing still meant death, so her fleet kept moving, striking and disappearing. "Admiral," reported her intelligence officer, "Vorthak morale is dropping across all occupied systems. Some garrisons are requesting transfers back to their homeworlds, and their supply situation Critical in 7 sectors, difficult in 23 others. They are having trouble feeding their armies. Hyun nodded. This was how humans fought wars, not with grand battles and heroic charges, but with patience, planning, and the understanding that every enemy, no matter how strong, needed food, fuel, and ammunition to keep fighting. Continue the pressure, she ordered. Hit them everywhere all the time until they understand that ruling humans costs more than it's worth. The war had become a test of endurance, and humans had evolved for exactly this kind of test. They could run a wounded mammoth to death across a continent, and they could run a galactic empire to death across the stars. The Vorthak were learning what prey felt like, and they did not like the lesson. 2 years of war had changed everything. The proud Vorthak Empire, once unshakable as a mountain, now trembled like a leaf in a storm. Across the galaxy, the alien subject races watched their masters grow weak and began to remember what freedom felt like. General Talon stood in his private chambers looking at reports that made his blood run cold. The crystalline Etherians had started sabotaging mining operations. The gaseous nebuloids were feeding false information to their Vorthak overseers. Even the peaceful Aquarians had begun refusing to work in the food production centers. Sir, his aide said nervously, the High Command is demanding explanations for the spreading rebellions. Talon crushed the data pad in his clawed hand. What am I supposed to tell them? That we are losing control because of one small species that refuses to die properly? The truth was worse than he wanted to admit. The humans had done something no enemy had ever done before. They had shown the galaxy that the Vorthak could be beaten. Not in one great battle, but slowly, piece by piece, until the mighty empire looked as fragile as glass. Admiral Hyun commanded her fleet from a mobile base that moved through the asteroid fields like a ghost. Her ships never stayed in one place long enough for the enemy to find them. This constant movement was exhausting for her crews, but it kept them alive. Admiral, reported her intelligence officer, we have confirmation. The Vorthak home fleet is mobilizing. They are pulling ships from across the Empire to defend their core worlds. Good, Hyun said with satisfaction. That means our strategy is working. Every ship they bring home is one less ship oppressing some other world. Lieutenant Yuna, now promoted to squadron commander, studied the tactical displays. Ma'am, our scouts report Vorthak supply lines are stretched to the breaking point. Some of their outer colonies have not received supplies in 3 months. And their soldiers? Desertion rates are climbing. Many are requesting transfers back to the home worlds. Some garrisons have simply abandoned their posts. Hyun nodded. This was what happened when predators became prey. They lost their confidence, their unity, their will to fight. The mighty Vorthak war machine was eating itself from the inside. Colonel Daehyun led the human hunter-killer teams that specialized in eliminating Vorthak commanders. His job was not to win battles, but to remove the leaders who made battles possible. He crouched in the shadows outside a Vorthak command bunker on the planet Nexar. For 3 weeks he had studied the habits of General Korax, the alien commander responsible for the brutal occupation of 12 human colonies. Korax followed, the same routine every day. He woke at the same time, ate the same breakfast, reviewed reports in the same order. The alien was a creature of habit, and habits could be exploited by patient hunters. Daehyun waited until Korax made his daily inspection of the perimeter defenses. The general always walked alone during this time, trusting his natural armor and strength to protect him. He had never learned to fear enemies who might be smaller, but infinitely more patient. The attack lasted 3 seconds. Daehyun struck from above, using a weapon designed specifically to penetrate Vorthak scales. The general died before he could even call for help, and by the time his guards found the body, the human assassin had vanished into the city's maze of tunnels and sewers. News of Korax's death spread through the Vorthak garrison like poison. If their strongest general could be killed in his own base, surrounded by guards, then none of them were safe. Some soldiers refused to leave their barracks. Others demanded immediate transfer to safer worlds. Dr. Soyeon worked in her secret laboratory, developing new weapons based on captured Vorthak technology. But these were not weapons designed to kill quickly. They were designed to cause the kind of suffering that would make even the strongest warrior think twice about fighting. "The neural disruptor is ready for field testing," she reported to Admiral Hyun. "It causes intense pain without permanent damage. The effect lasts for hours, even with Vorthak regeneration abilities." "Does it violate the Geneva Convention?" Hyun asked. "We never signed the Galactic Warfare Accords," Soyeon replied, "and the Vorthak certainly never followed them when they were conquering other species." Hyun was quiet for a moment. War had a way of changing people, making them do things they never thought they would do. But when the choice was between human survival and alien comfort, the choice was easy. "Deploy them," she ordered. "Target the command structures first." The new weapons had an effect beyond their physical damage. Vorthak warriors who had never known real pain suddenly found themselves writhing in agony that their natural healing could not stop. Some broke completely, babbling about invisible human demons that could torture them from a distance. General Talon received reports of the psychological warfare with growing horror. His soldiers were not just being defeated, they were being broken, turned into shadows of their former selves. Some refused to fight at all, hiding in their bases and jumping at every sound. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we are receiving surrender requests from 17 different garrisons. They want permission to withdraw from occupied territories." "Denied," Talon roared. "The Vorthak Empire does not retreat." But even as he said the words, he knew they were becoming meaningless. An empire that could not protect its soldiers would soon have no soldiers left to protect. He decided on one final gambit, a direct assault on the human homeworld. If Earth could be destroyed, surely the humans would lose their will to fight. Every species had a heart, and cutting out that heart would kill the body. "Prepare the Grand Fleet," he ordered. "Every ship we can spare, every weapon we can gather. We will end this war by destroying their nest." Captain Minho received the intelligence report while his ship patrolled the outer edges of human space. The Vorthak were massing the largest fleet in their history, over 10,000 ships heading directly for Earth. "Send word to Admiral Hyun," he told his communications officer. "Priority Alpha, they are coming for home." The message raced through human space faster than light itself. On every world, in every ship, humans received the same news. The enemy was coming to kill everything they loved. But instead of panic, the humans felt something else. A cold, quiet anger that ran deeper than rage. The Vorthak had made a mistake. They thought destroying Earth would break human will. They did not understand that threatening the human homeworld would unite every scattered fleet, every resistance cell, every refugee ship into one unstoppable force. Admiral Hyun stood on the bridge of her flagship as the human fleet gathered. Ships came from every corner of space. Military vessels, civilian transports converted to warships, mining vessels carrying improvised weapons. It was not the largest fleet in the galaxy, but it was something more dangerous than size. It was a fleet with nothing left to lose. "All ships," she broadcast to the assembled fleet, "we are going home. The enemy thinks they can break us by threatening our families. They are about to learn what happens when you corner a predator in its den." Commander Nari, recently freed from Vorthak captivity, joined the fleet command staff. Her time as a prisoner had taught her valuable lessons about alien psychology and tactics. "Admiral," she said, "I have been thinking about what the Vorthak expect. They expect us to defend Earth like a fortress, meeting their fleet in traditional battle formations. And instead," Nari smiled, the expression sharp as a blade, "instead, we let them come. We let them get close enough to taste victory. And then we show them why humans are the galaxy's most dangerous persistence hunters." The stage was set for the final confrontation. The largest alien fleet in history was heading for humanity's homeworld, confident that overwhelming force would finally end the troublesome human resistance. They were about to discover that humans fought hardest when they were protecting the things they loved most. The largest fleet in galactic history approached the Sol system like a red tide of death. 10,000 Vorthak warships spread across space in perfect formation, their weapons powered and ready to turn humanity's homeworld into burning ash. General Talon stood on the bridge of his massive flagship, watching Earth grow larger on his screens. The small blue planet looked so peaceful, so defenseless. Soon it would be nothing but dust and memories. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "we are detecting human ships. Approximately 300 vessels forming defensive positions around their homeworld." Talon laughed, a sound like grinding stone. 300 against 10,000, this will be over in minutes. He had brought enough firepower to destroy a dozen worlds. Nothing could stand against such overwhelming force, but Admiral Hyun was not planning to stand against it. She floated in the command center of her flagship, watching the alien armada approach with calm eyes. Around her, the Sol system buzzed with desperate activity, as every human ship, station, and installation prepared for the final battle. "All civilian transports have been converted to weapon platforms," reported Captain Minho. "The asteroid miners are ready with their drilling charges. Even the research stations have been armed with whatever weapons we could find." "And the special surprise from Dr. Minji?" "Ready and waiting, Admiral. The moment the Vorthak fleet gets close enough, we can deploy it." Hyun nodded. 2 years of war had taught her that winning was not about having the biggest guns. It was about using every advantage, every trick, every desperate gamble that might give you one more day of life. The Battle of Sol began at dawn on Earth. The Vorthak fleet moved into the system like a wall of destruction, their massive ships eclipsing the sun as they approached the inner planets. Captain Minho commanded the defense of Earth's orbital platforms. Mining stations became missile batteries. Scientific research labs turned into command centers. Civilian ships loaded with improvised explosives prepared to ram enemy vessels if necessary. "Remember," he told his crews over the communication channels, "we don't have to win. We just have to make them pay so much for victory that they regret ever finding us." The first wave of attacks came from the human fighter squadrons. Lieutenant Yuna led her pilots in a desperate charge against ships 100 times their size. They knew most of them would die, but they also knew that every minute they bought was another minute for the defense to organize. The Vorthak point defense systems swatted human fighters from space like annoying insects. But the insects kept coming, wave after wave, until the aliens began to realize something disturbing. The humans had more fighters than anyone had expected. "Where are all these ships coming from?" Talon demanded as his screens filled with more human contacts. "Unknown, sir. Our intelligence said they had only 300 vessels." What the Vorthak did not know was that every human in the system had become a warrior. Cargo haulers carried bombs instead of supplies. Tourist ships mounted military weapons. Even private yachts had been turned into guided missiles. The battle became a nightmare of desperate courage and calculated sacrifice. Human ships threw themselves at the alien fleet like moths against a flame, but each death served a purpose. The defenders were not trying to win a glorious victory. They were trying to position the enemy for the trap. Commander Jae-hyun prepared his ship for the most important mission of his life. The cargo hold had been filled with nuclear weapons and experimental explosives. His job was to penetrate the Vorthak formation and destroy their planet-killer weapon before it could target Earth. "Sir," his navigator said quietly, "the odds of survival are essentially 0. "I know," Jae-hyun replied, "but the odds of Earth surviving if we fail are also 0. Sometimes you have to choose which 0 you prefer." His ship, disguised as wreckage from an earlier battle, drifted toward the massive alien superweapon. The Vorthak were so focused on the human fighters attacking from all directions that they did not notice one more piece of debris floating toward their most important ship. The explosion that followed lit up the entire solar system. The planet killer died in a burst of fire that could be seen from Mars, taking with it the Vorthak's hope for a quick victory. But the real turning point came when Dr. Minji's secret weapon was finally deployed. For months, she had been working on a way to weaponize the Vorthak's dependence on their homeworld minerals. The result was an aerosol compound that could be spread through a ship's air system. "Deploy the viral agent," Admiral Hyun ordered. Across the battlefield, small human drones sacrificed themselves to deliver their deadly cargo. They crashed into Vorthak ships, releasing clouds of invisible death that spread through alien ventilation systems faster than any defense could stop them. The compound mimicked the mineral depletion that happened naturally when Vorthak stayed too far from home for too long. But instead of taking months to work, it compressed the aging process into hours. General Talon felt the first effects as weakness in his legs. Around him, his crew began to stumble and slow down. The scales that had protected them for centuries started to dull and crack. "What is happening to us?" he gasped as years of age fell on him like a heavy weight. His medical officer, now looking ancient despite being only middle-aged, checked his instruments with shaking hands. "Sir, our cellular regeneration is failing. We are aging at an accelerated rate." Across the Vorthak fleet, the same scene played out. Warriors who had lived for centuries suddenly found themselves dying of old age in the middle of battle. Some collapsed at their stations. Others simply stopped moving as their bodies gave up the fight. The human fleet, seeing their enemies weakening, pressed their attack with renewed fury. Ships that had been hiding in asteroid fields emerged to strike at crippled alien vessels. Fighters that had seemed defeated rallied for fresh assaults. Admiral Hyun watched the battle turn from her command bridge. The Vorthak fleet, once an unstoppable force, was falling apart as its crews aged and died. But she felt no joy in the victory. Too many humans had died to reach this moment. "Admiral," reported her communications officer, "we are receiving a signal from the Vorthak flagship. General Talon wants to speak with you." Hyun's image appeared on Talon's screens, and the alien general was shocked by what he saw. The human looked tired but not defeated, determined but not cruel. She looked like someone who had done what was necessary, not someone who enjoyed causing pain. "General Talon," she said calmly, "I am prepared to accept your surrender." Talon, now visibly aged and weakening, stared at her with eyes that held a new understanding. "Why do your people fight like this? Why do you never give up even when defeat seems certain?" Hyun was quiet for a moment, thinking of all the human worlds that had been conquered, all the families that had been destroyed, all the dreams that had been crushed under Vorthak rule. "Because, General, every other species you conquered was prey. They fought until fighting seemed hopeless, then they surrendered. But humans are persistence hunters. We don't fight until we win. We fight until you lose. And we are very, very patient." The alien general felt the weight of those words as heavily as the weight of his suddenly old body. "We never understood," he whispered. "We thought strength was everything." "Strength without adaptability is just delayed weakness," Hyun replied. "And the most dangerous predator isn't the one with the biggest claws. It's the one that never stops hunting." Talon's fleet surrendered within the hour. Those ships that could still function limped away from human space, carrying the survivors back to their home worlds. The great Vorthak Empire, which had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years, crumbled in a matter of months as news of their defeat spread. But humanity did not seek to replace them as galactic overlords. Instead, they established a confederation based on the principle that no species should fear others simply because they were stronger. Captain Yunhai, now serving as humanity's first ambassador to the newly formed Galactic Council, stood before representatives of hundreds of species. Many of them had been slaves under Vorthak rule for generations and were only now tasting freedom. "We did not come to your galaxy to conquer," she said in her first address to the council. "We came to explore, to learn, to make friends among the stars. But if anyone threatens us or our allies, you will discover why evolution made us the galaxy's most persistent hunters." The age of Vorthak supremacy was over. The age of human patience had begun. On Earth, Admiral Hyun stood in her garden, watching the sun set over a world that was finally safe. The war was over, but its lessons would be remembered for generations. Humanity had learned that they were not alone in the universe, and the universe had learned that humans were not prey. Somewhere in the distance, children played in the streets, their laughter carrying on the evening breeze. They would grow up in a galaxy where strength was balanced by justice, where the strong protected the weak instead of conquering them. The hunt was finished, but the humans remained watchful. In the darkness between the stars, they knew there might be other predators, other empires that thought might made right. If those predators came, they would find the same thing the Vorthak had found: Humans were not the biggest or strongest species in the galaxy, but they were the most persistent. And in the end, persistence was the deadliest weapon of all.